Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I'm answering a question that I get asked quite a lot on stream, the YouTube comment section, and on Discord. And that quite simply is, Sealord, what is the best battleship in game? I'm glad you asked. Obviously, battleships attract, in most cases, newer players. They're heavily armed ships, they've got big guns, they're big, derpy ships, and they're fun to play. So obviously, quite a lot of you would like to play the best one. And my simple answer is, there's not a best battleship. Now, before we go any further, I just do want to clarify this here. There are points in this game's life where there have been ships that are more powerful than others, and there have been quite a few outright busted ships. However, they do eventually get nerfed into place. And yes, there's still some issues with some classes, shall we say, but when it comes to battleships and cruisers and destroyers, again, there are some that are more powerful than others, but I'd hesitate to say there's one ship in each class that is outright the best overall. Again, there's ones that are more powerful, ones that are more in meta, and ones that currently are the best. But with the nature of a live service game and a game that's constantly getting updated, constantly getting changes, you don't really have one the best in most cases. Again, there's some situations with some other classes, and I think we know what two we're talking about, that, yeah, there's one that dominates for a while, and then something gets nerfed, the mechanic gets changed, and then something else is the best. Although with those other classes, of course, Malta, FDR, Hakuru, all three get kind of thrown around right now for being the best CV. There was a point in time when the German CVs, the Richthofen, was the best CV in game, but again, things happened, and life goes on. So, I don't think there's a best battleship per se. Now, again, there are points in time where there's a ship that recently gets released and it's stupidly broken for some time, like OG Conqueror. So if we go back to when the British battleships were first released, Conqueror was stupidly busted. The ship essentially didn't have a citadel because it was so low in the waterline, and it has the British battleship dry dock heal, where she can simply print back 2/3 of her HP after getting clapped. If you could even clap the thing, because again, it didn't have a citadel back in the day. Not to mention, too, back in the day, you could get its detect down to, I believe, 11.7 kilometers. So you could just sit in the back, load HE, and spam. And just murder whatever got in your way. Now, thankfully today, they raised the citadel, they nerfed the detection, and you can't do that anymore with the Conqueror. So, yeah. And again, Kremlin, not that long ago, Kremlin was the best battleship in game, but again, she got hit hard with that nerf hammer as well. So I don't think anyone who's played the game recently would say the Kremlin is the best battleship in game. So it comes down to, of course, you knowing your ship. The best thing you can do in order to perform well in a battleship is pick a ship that is appealing to you, that you think you like the playstyle, get grinding on the line, learn the game, learn your ship, learn your line, learn the strengths, learn the weaknesses, and then go forth and play that ship and learn it. The devs do get a lot of flack at times, and a lot of it is pretty well deserved at times, but I will give them credit in saying that they've managed to, in the case of the battleships, and again, in my opinion, most other classes have managed to deliver a pretty balanced experience across the board with the nations, and have managed to give each nation their own flavor and type of play style. I mean, really think about it. This is a game about naval warfare, where in real life it was just ships sitting pretty much at their maximum range, or their most effective range, shooting each other, looking at a dot on the horizon, trying to land shots, and make it a pretty enjoyable, well, not a pretty, a very enjoyable experience when it works, and a fun time as well. And they've managed to give all these nations their own flavor and their own characteristics, which, when you see how many nations and how many ships and how many lines are in the game, if you really take a step back and look at all of it, it's pretty impressive. And again, they've managed to do that in a relatively balanced manner. Again, at times. So, if you want to play the best battleship in game, you should definitely pick one that appeals to you and one that is obviously too kind of in meta. So if you want a short answer to what lines you should grind to if you want to be playing one of the best battleships in game, right now go down the Japanese battleship line, the Yamato. When you get to tier 10, 9 18-inch guns. You can fit the reload module on there, great accuracy at range. It's also a really tanky battleship at range. You get the 18-inch guns, which means you can overpin 32 millimeters of armor. The next line I would recommend would be the American battleships, and I would also recommend this if it's your first time going down a battleship line. American battleships are the place to start. They're like the perfect all-around battleships. They've got decent armor. From tier 8 on up, you get access to the improved heal. Well, technically from tier 7 on up, you get access to the improved American battleship heal. They are pretty darn good. Not pretty darn good. They are really darn good at medium range. So like 13, 14, 15 kilometers is their sweet zone. And they do decent at closer range too as well, as long as you mind your sides. At longer ranges, not so much, because the AP shells are super floating once you get to longer ranges. So they're not the best snipers, but again, you get that improved heal, decent AA, and decent maneuverability. In the case of the Iowa, excellent maneuverability because she is quite fast. I am talking about the main line too, the Montana line, not the Vermont line. Besides that one, I would go down the German battleships. I would go down and get the Preußen. They are decent now. The Preußen itself, though, is a massive step up when it comes to the German battleships, and she's a very good ship for the current meta. Tanky, you can get her 8 18-inch guns down to a 21-second base reload time, and with the German AP, it hits pretty darn hard. And from there, those are the three ones I would mainly focus on right now. The British battleships, they are really decent as well. They're easy to play. They are frustrating to play down once you get to like the Monarch, although I do think the Monarch is a good ship. The Monarch herself has many a negative connotation around her, and of course you are playing a tier 8 ship at, well, what is a tier 7 hull with some slight buffs to her external bits of armor at tier 8, so that can be frustrating at times. But the Conqueror today, like I said, it has been nerfed. It's still a really easy ship to play. You just load HE and just go for it. But the AP, don't ignore that AP either words with the Conqueror. And then ship lines, I would avoid. The Italian battleships, they are an absolute pain to grind through. And the Colombo, it's pretty decent, but it's just, God, getting there sucks. So once you go down like the American battleship line and then the Japanese battleship line, after those two, I would say, yeah, if you have some interest in SAP, sure, go down it, but just know that that line doesn't really get doesn't get good until you're well up at tier 9. And at that point with the Lepanto, then with the sheer amount of guns you've got going for you right now, at that point, that does make up for it. And then the Colombo, again, I think it's a pretty decent tier 10 battleship, but it's just getting there is rough. Lines that aren't in the meta but are fun when they work, I would say, would be the German battlecruiser lines. That line is just a blast all the way up and down it because it's stupid fun. You have fast ships with a lot of secondaries, and then the Schlieffen is an absolute meme machine, but not really in the meta, and in most cases at tier 10, you'll have pretty rough times getting it to work, which it does hurt to say because I do like brawling. The British battlecruiser line, they're also kind of not in the meta. They're very much close range battleships. They're not quite as close range dependent as the British battlecruisers, but what I find myself doing is I load HE, and for longer range, I just keep HE loaded. Once I get a little bit closer in, I do swap on over to the AP. Their HE isn't quite as good as the British battleships HE, but they will still get the job done at range. The French battleships, right now, they are pretty decent as well. The Alsace is a really fun battleship to play, along with the Republic. The Republic is one that can hang in there with the meta right now, thanks to her sheer reload time on her 17.5-inch guns. With that reload module, you can get that down to around a 22-second base reload time, right then and there. Then you have the Soviet battleships, which are by far some of the best tanks in the game. They have great armor, they have a quick damage con, which cools down really fast but has limited charges, and they do pack one hell of a punch as well. They tend to have large for their tier guns. They are gimmicked, though, to be more accurate at close range. That's a very simple way of explaining how their dispersion works, and less accurate at long range. And of course, you can fit Kuznetsov on your Soviet Battleship too, which will increase their survivability through his Will to Victory talent, where you get a free damage con and a free heal once your ship gets below 10% HP, and that applies to all Soviet ships too. So that's a very quick, very bare bones rundown of the battleship lines. So you have to then decide, what do I want to do? If you like to snipe, the Japanese battleships are some of the best snipers in the game. They have large for their tier guns, and used to have the largest guns in the game, with the Yamato at tier 10 with her 18.1 inch guns. So if you want to snipe, that's definitely the line for you. There's some there's definitely a few quirks here and there with the Japanese battleships. It's interesting to see what they might do with the line, because if you go down the Japanese battleship line, it flip-flops between battle cruisers and battleships. So, you know, at one tier your ship has pretty decent armor, at the next tier it's got a complete trash armor. Like the Yamato itself is actually one of the most well-protected ships in the game, especially from long-range fire, but then you have ships like the Congo, which can be blown up quite easily. So yeah, interesting line there. I do have a full guide out for that, but you know, again, that was couple years ago. I do need to go and revisit that. If you prefer more of a middle ground, I would recommend the American battleships. Like I said, they're great at mid-range, they're good all-around battleships, and definitely the place to start for newer players. They are a very forgiving line, and a line that I cannot recommend enough for newer players. If you like to brawl, the German battlecruiser line or the German battleship line would be the line for you. Just know that, again, this playstyle isn't really in meta anymore, and the Preußen, once you get to it, is a better long-range ship than she is a brawler. If you do like a tier 10 brawling German battleship, then you would have to go and get the GK, which can be acquired for coal, which is, again, a free resource. If you prefer more of a flanky, more of a fast type of gameplay style, then that's where the French battleships come in. They are fast for their tier. They have small but a lot of guns for their tier in most cases. The Alsace is a fantastic boat, and one that I can't recommend enough. It's one of the best tier 9 ships in the game, hands down. The Republic, her 8 17.5 inch guns pack one hell of a punch. They get 30mm overpin, but not 31. So again, can't match over 32. I'm sorry, they get 32. They don't get 32mm of pin, not 31. But you can overmatch 32mm of armor. But with 30mm of armor, you're punishing quite a bit of stuff down there. If you prefer more of an HE spam, if you just want to set fires and watch people cry, then that's where the British BB line comes in. They have excellent HE with short fuse, AP. And the Conqueror, despite being nerfed, is still a pretty solid ship all around. If you want something that's fast and close, then that's where the British battlecruiser line comes into play. These are battle cruisers, so they don't have as good armor as battleships do, but they still have fast speed, high top speed. They're really maneuverable. They get the gimmicky, gyroscopically guided torpedoes, decent HE, and pretty darn solid AP. And the St. Vincent does have 9 18-inch guns, again with 457mm guns for you. If you want fast brawlers, that is the German battlecruiser line. All in all together, they're very fast, lots of secondaries, great fun to play, but again, aren't really in meta. And if you want to just cry, then there's the Italian battleship line. Again, the Republic, not the Republic, the Cristoforo Colombo is a decent ship, but getting there is an absolute pain. It's not one I would really recommend newer players go up. They do get sap, and the mid-tier battleships, in order to balance the sap shells, they had to absolutely just neuter them in all other aspects, especially when it comes to accuracy as well. They do get crawling smoke, which is a pretty neat feature, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend them at all right now, unless, again, you've gotten all the other battleships and you really just want to complete your grind. Yeah, sure. So guys, that's my 2 cents on what is the best battleship for you. Again, TLDR here at the end. Pick a line that piques your interest, stick with it, learn its quirks and features, learn how to play it the best, and just get in there, play the ship, better yourself as a player, and you'll get there eventually. Again, this isn't a game where you can just pick something up and go for it. You got to learn the game. You got to learn your ship. You got to learn what works, what doesn't work, your ship's strength and your ship's weaknesses, and how to play around those. So guys, let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments down below. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. When we do 45,000 subs, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. And I hope to catch you guys in the next one.